All hegemonies kind of project a new way of acting and thinking. In fact, an arbitration expert called Xin Wei says that the BRI is not as much as it's an infrastructure project, but it's also a way to socialize states. So it's making states think and act in a way that is more in line with how China runs things. Mm-hmm. And this, one of the ways it does this is through stipulations in the BRI contracts that state that any kind of litigation regarding misunderstandings or regarding problems with BRI projects are to be resolved in Chinese courts. Mm. This means there's an expansion of China's jurisdiction across its borders to these places where BRI projects are happening. Further, in terms of the law of the sea, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea states only entitled to so many nautical miles off its shore to extract and exploit resources. China does not agree with this because, as you know, it wants all the South China Sea for itself. Now, some Arab states are on board with this. They agree with China. And I don't think they're doing it just on, just because of the idea of it. They're also doing it to kind of curry favor and with China and return some perks, here and there. So in these ways, China is kind of slowly molding these states. And, the Gulf is monarchies where ruling is top down anyway. And China likes ruling top down. It's not very big on organic democracies from the bottom up. And so the Gulf and China, their relationship is good. It's going stronger. North Africa's, it's on a case-by-case basis, especially with Libya now being the way it is. But that's another way that China is projecting itself. And yes, it certainly would like to be the core. But, I can't really say what China's intentions are. But, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, but it's not really quacking like a duck yet. It's being a very quiet, well-behaved fowl, if I may.
So when you said that the BRI is a way of socializing countries, obviously China has other ways to do this to kind of influence countries to agree with them on their international issues or whatever. But I was thinking also of like when Pakistan and the economic corridor there, like in your way of looking at things, is BRI and like the CPEC, like they're primarily economic in nature and they just happen to have these other benefits, or is this like a more concerted, like a more strategic way for the Chinese Communist Party to gain influence in the world? Like they're not just looking at this economically, but they're looking at it from all of these like kind of like power aspects.
Real quick, in case we haven't said it, BRI, Belt and Road Initiative.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Again, I can't say what the Communist Party's intentions are. I can only look at the actions on the ground. So far, what it seems to me is that it entered Pakistan from the gateway of economic cooperation, right? After 2011, when bin Laden was assassinated by the U.S. on Pakistani land, Pakistan faced a lot of international condemnation for hosting this terrorist over there. And so it found an ally in China then. And even before this happened, China and Pakistan were stepping up their trade relations. But recently, the relationship has deepened much more so. And it's not only economic, because even though I think China wants economic gains first and foremost, China is partnering with Pakistan's military. And Pakistan's military is now more assertive than it's ever been in a civilian government, because Pakistan has had military coups before. But right now, there's a civilian government. However, the military keeps getting more and more power, and also it has more and more presence in autonomous regions of Pakistan, such as Balochistan. Balochistan, for those who don't know, is an area that borders Pakistan and Iran, and it's people. There's secessionist movements there, and there's secessionist movements in China as well. And this makes and China is very allergic to secessionist movements. It hates them. It wants like a unity, even if it's not artificial unity. It just wants the bloc to remain the way it is. And so it's doing whatever it can to empower. I don't think it's doing whatever it can, but a consequence of China partnering with the military and having the military get all these extra perks through government legislation is that the military is able to assert control over these once tumultuous areas in Balochistan. In fact, if you look at CPEC, it runs from China's westernmost city of Kashgar through Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. It ends in the port of Gwadar, which is in Balochistan. But the trajectory is a very cautious one. It doesn't go really deep into Balochistan. It goes in a straight line down to the coast, and then across the coast from Karachi to Gwadar. And so in this way, China is transforming Pakistan politically as well. So it starts economically, then becomes politically, and the army is a very efficient instrument. It's a proxy, essentially. One more thing is that recently, so in Pakistan, like I said, usually areas are quite autonomous. However, there was a motion passed recently in the Pakistani Senate to create a centralized body that would govern national development initiatives. It's called the National Development Coastal Authority. However, what's interesting is that each city along the coast of Pakistan has its own development office. And so this whole initiative to centralize power within the government, many critics have said, is just makes it easier for China to control the whole country by strengthening the government's control over the country. So that's another political consequence of CPEC.
Also, and that's the CPEC is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor.
China-Pakistan Economic Corridor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting you're talking about how the Belt and Road is affecting the politics in these states, because I've heard the analysis that the Belt and Road goes through Xinjiang, and I've heard that a lot of the reason the Communist Party is cracking down in Xinjiang is to create a stable environment for the Belt and Road. So as you were mentioning, this is very interesting how the economic beginnings of the Belt and Road inevitably transform into political aspiration.
Of course, yes.
So I guess the question is, the Chinese Communist Party, obviously, through the Belt and Road, is trying to influence the politics of these countries. Meanwhile, you have the Western world also trying to have a degree of influence on these countries, but those usually come with certain humanitarian or human rights concerns as well. China doesn't have that. So how is this affecting all of these countries being tied up by the Belt and Road?
Well, as you said, when we talk about aid and foreign direct investment, some states like the EU, for example, they place a high importance on social justice, on human rights, on democracy, so on and so forth. For China, it's all about economic development. China thinks that the way to develop a country is through economic development. But International Development 101 says that if you just pump money into a state with existing inequalities, you're going to those inequalities become greater, because whoever controls like the factories or whatever, the managers will get richer. The workers might not see such a big increase in their wages. Similarly, for ethnic violence or things like that, I'm not optimistic about it. But when it comes to governance processes, China is not like interestingly enough, China doesn't really export its ideals as aggressively as the United States when it comes to women's rights, for example. Because in China, because of the one-child policy, women have had to enter the workplace as well. Whereas China is entering alliances with Iran, for example, which is a very sexist country, and also has economic relations with Saudi Arabia, and it doesn't really put pressure on them to improve the status of certain minorities there. It just wants stability. Get it done, whatever way you want it to get done, but I want stability so I can invest.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that China cares about women's rights in China either. I mean, the whole like having women work, it's a production issue. It's that you can essentially mobilize, and this was Mao's theory too, that you can then you can mobilize like the entire population instead of only half the population as the workers, right? So
if the Communist Party cared about women's rights, they wouldn't force them to be sterilized or force them to have abortions.
No, or like just even this whole campaign to like try to make women have like guilt women into having babies younger is because they're looking at it from the perspective of what is best for the state, like what is best for the party state, right? So I'm not surprised that they don't have a problem with how Iran treats women, because they would if circumstances were different, they would not have trouble treating women the same way.